rule.
Yeah.
Would you want to tell us a little bit about, first of all, for just in case, what is the 95-5 rule?
Yep.
And what did you find that sort of brings into question what we all thought about it?
Yeah. So the 95-5 rule is it's based on a piece of research that was done by some academics in Australia. It's really good, solid research, originally done in B2C. And the 95 and 5 refer to their finding that in general, about 5% of your market, your audience, will be in a buying mode, like, about to buy at any given time, and 95% of it not. And so I think this has been adopted really widely over the last couple of years in B2B, thanks to the B2B Institute at LinkedIn, which kind of helped Ehrenberg Bass port this thing over to B2B. Now, in that research, the researchers provide a formula and a mechanism for figuring out yourself what that percentage of accounts that really are in a buying mode should be. But what I noticed is that most people, of course, don't bother with that. And they just adopt, there's 5% of our audience in market. Now, I think even with that, just at that level, it's probably a good idea for B2B marketers to be thinking that way, because it helps you understand that there is a very small set of accounts that really are going to be in the position to buy from you in the near future. And it's incredibly important to try to figure out which ones those are, because trying to get the rest of them to buy from you is not going to happen immediately in B2B. But the fact of the people adopting this kind of 5% as a rule bugged me, because it would seem to me, if in the paper he's saying 5% are going to buy from you or within this period are really in a purchasing mode. And in B2B, what we know from our other research is the average buying process is about 12 months long. So if 5% are going to buy in this quarter, then there's got to be a lot more that are somewhere in a buying process, but not yet, at the point where they're going to make a decision. And fortunately, you mentioned 6Sense. I'm very grateful to be able to do the stuff that I do here, and that they give me that chance. And one of the things that we have is we have a data set when we look across our customers of a record of all of the accounts that they're marketing and selling to. So we took a sample of over 1,000 to start with, but the final kind of sample is about 600 of our customers. And for those customers, a big part of what we do is we use AI to look at the behavioral patterns, and we make predictions about how likely each one of those accounts is to become a pipeline opportunity for our customers. So that's the model we build for our customers each time. And so what it's saying is, if you've got 1,000 accounts, how likely is each one of those 1,000 accounts to become a pipeline deal in the next 90 days? And then we break those out. So the ones that have a low percentage are early stage buyers, and as they get further along, they're later stage buyers. So whether you have an 18-month buying cycle or a 6-month buying cycle, they're early, middle, or late within that cycle. So we can see how many are not in market at all, and how many are in market, and then roughly where are they, beginning, middle, or end. And what our data shows across about 600 customers and their 19 million accounts that they're marketing to is that about 60% of accounts on average, if you just take a slice of that data, any slice, you'll find that about 60% of accounts are not in market. Now, vast majority of our customers are SaaS companies. And when you think about the SaaS world, most customers are on 2-year contracts. So there's 50% of the audience that you would want to sell to, just out of they're in year 1 and they're not in market. And then there's a big chunk that are not in market because they're happy or because the cost of switching or whatever might be very high. So they're not in market either. And so you've got this big chunk, 60% not in market at all. And then you've got 40% that are somewhere in a buying process. But then in a really what I think is a validation of the 95-5 rule in a sense, we organize things into stages. The last 2 stages are decision and then purchase of the buying journey. And between those two, that's about 6% on average across all of our customers. So very close to that 5% number that we're looking at. But only 2% actually in the purchase stage. So it's like, that's like a really small percentage. You've got 40% of accounts that are somewhere in a buying process, but of that, at any given time, only 2% that are really in the last stages of a buying journey, which one tells us that you just cannot miss any of those. And then two, if what you're doing is really only competing for that last 6% slice, then you're competing over a very small pie, right? And trying to improve your size of that pie. So what we talked about in New York last week when we introduced this research is maybe we ought to be looking at how to get the 34% of accounts that are in market, but not all the way down to that, to keep going in their buying process, right? How do we encourage more buyers to not get despondent, get distracted, not be able to prove the business case and drop out of a buying process? So that's a long explanation of the nature of that, but that's really what that is.